Alright, new full patch preview, which is a really cool patch, I think. You know, this is one of those times where when I woke up in the morning and read this, I was like, well, thank you, Riot. You guys have a balls to do something that will actually change the game, right? Because I feel like a lot of times they have these patches, they do absolutely nothing. So let's go over the patch preview. It's the final patch before Worlds. Talked about the system changes yesterday, talking about a few of the specific champion changes. High level, we're looking to continue getting a few more mages into mid lane, nerfing AD systemic options further, bringing a few more AD junglers up, and systematically nerfing some of the overpowered tank support items. Caitlyn hasn't been present in the meta for a while. We're giving her slightly better control on one of her skewed spells and better scaling that doesn't skew towards the totality builds. AP junglers, Brandon Lilia, we're continuing our trend of bringing down AP junglers around the Faded Ashes power level. We think the item is doing a good job of allowing other more fringe AP champions to jungle reasonably and are tuning the other champions around it. Yep, so they're doubling down, I mean tripling, quadrupling down on the thing. Makes sense, yeah. Grace Kindred looking to get a few more AD junglers back into the meta here, looking for relatively known buffs to their core damage abilities. Kindred in particular has been looking worse for wear after a Kraken nerf that was targeted at other champions. Lissandra, Ryze, and TF. Some of the mage-oriented buffs this patch are aimed at furthering their particular niches. Lissandra as a more utility-oriented mage and lane presence. Ryze, as he's not seen play for a long time, is feeling a bit weak. And TF has lost some luster in recent times, and we're giving him a bit more stable buff to his bread and butter with the hopes of seeing him more in the meta. Okay, so we have APTF and Lissandra being added to the patch, right? Because yesterday when I was reading, those champions were not included, which is really cool. So these changes, yeah, cool. LeBlanc, while LeBlanc would be a valuable addition to the world's meta, she's overall too strong for solo queue. She's posting pretty high ban rates across the board. Yeah, she's broken. Aurora, as mentioned yesterday, Aurora is a pretty deep master champion, is posting pretty good statistics, which indicates she's likely long-term too strong when players have mastered her. We're looking to bring down some of the potency of her multi-champion ult cast to hit some of the elite Q, as we often observe high-skilled players using it more effectively than regular players. That makes sense. However, Riot, you guys have mentioned that the Q hitbox and the ult hitbox were gonna be like a little bit more visually clear, so this wasn't mentioned here. Rumble and Kennen have been a little too strong for a while, and as a result have been relatively more powerful to bring AD champions in mid lane. We're tapping them down a bit to open up room for other champions. Okay. Supports, we're making some nerfs to items that tank supports, especially the meta drivers, by disproportionate nerf to support rushing first item Warmok. We also think Warmok is generally too powerful. We're also tapping Seraphine and Senna down, as Seraphine has been strong for a while, especially with her W max, okay. Senna AP builds are too strong in the current patch, and as a viable alternative build, it should be probably closer to that an alternative build. Salas is in a better spot after the buffs to get his numbers into a better spot. We're nerfing his ratios a bit to make his more HP-oriented builds a little more competitive. Typically have less AP than pure burst builds. Okay. So the text doesn't say that much. Let's look at the individual changes, which are, I think, really big on some certain champions. So number one is Caitlyn. W cooldown being lowered by 4 seconds and 2 seconds in late game. This is ability you are maxing second usually on Caitlyn. So the buff is not as big as if it was if you were maxing last. Obviously this will bring E max second versus W max second a bit closer. However, I assume W max second is still going to be the correct way to play. Yeah, this is for sure a skill that is way more used by pros and high-elo players than anything else. And then the attack speed ratio is going to be a little bit more upped. So attack speed ratio buff isn't big, but the reason why they're doing that is pretty simple. Low-elo players are bad at itemizing. Caitlyn is not a good champion at itemizing attack speed. So when they're buffing attack speed ratio, they're simultaneously helping low-elo noobs itemize, like basically helping them not be failures at building. Also, like Rapid Fire, right, that's an item she builds from time to time, so Rapid Fire is a bit better on her. That's pretty much it. I would say overall, not the biggest Caitlyn buffs. They're probably not going to be... She's probably not going to be at Worlds meta, I would assume. Maybe like Gumayushi is going to pull her off. That's about it. Graves, so we have a Graves buff. Q cooldown will go down at 1 second at max rank, and Q1 damage, so the first, in like the Q1, not Q2, is going up by 20 damage. Absolutely pretty big buffs. Main ability really buffed here, especially at level 9, right? This is actually a bigger buff to Soul than Grace, because he reaches level 9 faster, so it's more impactful there. Yeah, it's a big Grace buff. It's decent Grace buffs. Will we see Grace? Probably not. I think in current state of Fated Ashes and Lianji, people will keep searching champions that will abuse those items to the maximum. And even Graves jungle, like, what items will he even buy, right? Like, we know Creed Graves, as far as I know, is not the best. Collector got heavily nerfed, so that's a Graves nerf. Like, Yomu's lethality builds are trash as fuck. Like, even Opportunity got nerfed for range champions. Like, I don't think Graves has that good of a build anyway. And why would you ever play Graves when Fated Ash junglers are so stronger than Lianji and all that? So, it's a nice Graves buff. It's good, especially for soul lane, but, I mean, Cleaver got buffed, that's true. Cleaver is a good item on Graves, but I guess Graves build could be like Eclipse Cleaver, maybe? I don't know. Probably not gonna see him. Kindred getting a pretty big buff here. So Q attack speed goes back to 35%, which is a revert. Okay, this used to be the old number. E flat damage goes up by 40 and 80% bonus AD to 100% bonus AD. E cooldown will also go down by 2 seconds. So here, what is happening is that E is becoming a lot better ability in Kindred. So maybe now you will consider maxing E second compared to W second. I'm not sure if you will, maybe. However, as I read this, I honestly think these are good buffs also for lane Kindred. She's probably not going to come back, but lane Kindred could be really good with like Emax second as well. Or maybe there's going to be some build where you Emax first. Probably not though. This ability is probably still not first max now. But yeah, decent Kindred buffs. This is like minimum 2% win rate probably, like around 2%. For sure. Then we go to the interesting mage buffs. So, okay.
My friend Nemesis.
And I think Riot really like overshot some of these buffs. So number one is Lissandra. 20 damage added on Q. And R slow up by 15% at every rank. Honestly, the R slow is most impactful, I think, at rank 1 of the ability. I think the rank 3 R slow is pretty good already anyway. The rank 2 R slow is like whatever. I think like the R slow will matter a little bit at rank 1. This is not that big of a buff, but it will matter. But Q damage is insane. Like, seriously, this is insane. I really think this is at least, like... I really think Lissandra could be played in pro with this buff. Like, genuinely. I honestly think she will be good. Like, this is an insane buff to this champion. This is, like, really hard to really say how insane this is. This is going to, like, push her wave clear to really, like, big levels. Her AP ratios are pretty insane. Her W is like really good CC. Yeah, she has some weaknesses as a champion, but like, I really think Lissandra, like, especially like she can build like Blackfire Torch, Lianji, she can go like Malignant Zonia, like there's a lot of items she can go. Like, I really do think this could potentially bring her back in high elo and pro, like situationally, like for sure. 20 damage on an ability like this is no joke. This is exactly what she needed. Then we have Rise, and this is another buff that Riot kind of nails, honestly. Rise, like, this is like nail, like, this is so good. 5 damage on Q, like, it might like look like nothing, but remember, this is 20 damage on average on a normal combo of Rise. The longer the fight is, the better this is for him. This is a huge early game buff, which is his weakest point of the game. This also potentially makes his wave clear at level 5 specifically better. So I'm not sure, I need to test this, but I assume at level 5 there's potentially on a cannon wave, he wave clears way faster with his buff because of that. So yeah, huge level 5 wave clear buff, potentially. The R cooldown buff is nice, however, usually you're gonna use this ability to go back to lane. So this is like nice for Rise players because they can just use R more often to go back to lane, because this ability is pretty trash in early game especially. Yeah, I mean, honestly, this is exactly what he needs. I'm for sure trying this champion. Like, all these buffs are exciting so far. And then Twisted Fate, right? So we know APTF struggling. Yeah, they nerfed like a lot of damage on him. Blah, blah, blah. Boom! 20 damage on Q. I mean, I can't complain. That's also a big buff. Now, okay, this is also a buff to version of TF where he buys Trinity Force and maxes Q first. However, I don't think that version is going to come back, sadly. The runes are too weak for that version. The items are not that good for that version. I don't think it's coming back, sadly. It is a step into the right direction for Trinity Force TF. But yeah, APTF, boom, it's back, right? So we're gonna see like what, Shiralia or Roa into Lichbane pretty much, and then Rapid Fire. I mean, he's like on the verge of being pretty decent, and he's gonna come back. And so these champions being buffed are, you know, there are champions in meta that are that do counter these champions, but also these champions are coming in as like meta counters to certain champions, like Lissandra, Rise, and TF are like pretty good counters to LeBlanc, technically, right? And when these champions are getting buffed and LeBlanc is getting nerfed in the same patch, like, it's nice to have some more viable options to be playing into LeBlanc. Then we have Varus. 15 to 235 and then bonus total AD to 90 to 370. 1.5 to 1.9 bonus AD. So it goes from total to bonus AD. And it says that this is a nerf to tank builds and a buff to otherwise. The problem I have with this is that I can't see how this is not a massive lethality buff. Like, an ability with 370 base damage. Are you fucking kidding me? This is the biggest base damage ability in League of Legends, by the way. There's no ability like this. Now, of course, they're gonna say, well, but you gotta charge it. Well, Lethality Virus charges this in most fights, in most scenarios anyway. Bro, this looks insane, Lethality Virus buff. Like, Lethality Virus might just be completely back. I think Riot completely failed in the direction of how to balance Virus. I honestly think this is one of the worst changes Riot has done in a while now. And I watched Freak Patch preview or whatever video, and he literally admitted in the video, hey, I think Varus W is a design failure. Thank you, Freak. I've been saying it for God knows how long. Yeah, it is a design failure. We should be probably trying to rework that ability in the future. But, you know. And then the bonus AD ratio also being up on E. I don't know, like, Lethality Varus is, like, crazy. I don't know why this is happening. I think Lethality Virus is such a bad way of... It's such a toxic... I don't know. I hate it. Whatever. Aurora. So, okay. Aurora, R damage down by 25, 50, 75. Huge nerfs. Huge nerfs. Yeah. For an early game skewed champion, base damage nerfs are massive on her. Yeah, R is like... I mean, first of all, the R was like overtuned really hard. This is the second nerf on R now with damage. This ability is really like no skill. You can't miss it. It's like an AoE Aurelion Soul ult that always hits 5 people. So it's like, yeah, that does more damage, right? So it's like, yeah, it's nice that you guys are nerfing this ability because it doesn't make sense that Aurora is doing more damage than Aurelion Soul and Hui ultimate when those ults have to be landed and they usually have like a, you know, hit less people. Unless it's the big Aurelion Soul ult, of course. That's an exception. It's a good nerf. It's a good nerf. Can't complain. Ashe, base HP down by 30 HP. So Riot always has this like nerf where they nerf 30 HP off a champion because they know exactly how much win rate it takes from a champion in Hyla. It's like a pro level nerf because it's like base HP is like important in early game and like pro is more about early game, whatever. I get it. Fine nerf for Ashe, I guess. However, I think the better way to nerf the champ would probably be to nerf her damage rather than tankiness, but I think this is also fine. So, okay, Brand. Passive damage cap to monster added, dot 30 DPS and explosion. So, okay, so Brand passive will, in early game, as far as I understand it, do the same damage. However, when you're like level 5 and onwards and we're doing a clear, the passive will eventually deal, I think, up to 40 less damage per tick, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know, something like that. And then the explosion damage is also now going to be capped. So yes, this will hurt jungle Brand wave clear, right? And do I think Brand is that? No, I just think Brand is gonna move to the direction of being more situational. Oh, enemy team drops full mini team comp that sucks into Lianji and Riley being perma-kited and Brand can like outpace the jungler. Well, it's still an awesome Brand game, but maybe you're not gonna be picking Brand anymore when enemy has like a Nidalee or a Karthus or a Lilia or I don't know what, because like, you know, maybe you get outpaced and the champ is gonna be just much weaker when it comes to pacing in jungle. So that's how I see this nerf. Basically, still good for Brand games, bad in like champion will be worse in games where Brand will not be that good. Ezreal AD 62 to 60, so they're reverting. This was one of the buffs that Ezreal got a couple of patches ago. Then he became like really good in the meta, and now they're reverting it. 2 AD off, mostly an early game good nerf. Yeah, making Ezreal laning phase weaker. I think Ezreal nerf. I don't think this champion needs nerf. I said it yesterday. I don't see the reason to nerf this champion. Something like Jhin needs more nerfs. Misfortune possibly needs a bigger nerf than this too. Like, I don't know. It's weird. So, Katrina. Passive AP ratio down by 10% at every level. You know, this is like 10% is a lot on a spell like that because you use multiple daggers in a combo, right? Especially in team fights, this could literally be leading to 5 daggers in a single team fight, right? And you know, I know Katrina mains are complaining a lot about this nerf. I saw like Katrina mains are completely losing it over this nerf because they would like Q to be reverted. Now, here's my thing. I think the correct thing for Riot to do is to just partially revert the Q buff. Like, not make that ability be 240 base damage. I think they should go to 230 or 220. That's what I would do, personally. I totally get that this buff is stupid, but at the same time, I do not feel bad for Katrina mains because they were all delusional as fuck when they said that Katrina wasn't buffed when those changes came in, when she obviously was buffed. So at this point, like, I don't even feel bad for them, you know? It's whatever, but yeah. Kennen Q AP ratio, 85% to 75%. Okay, so we'll go on a little bit of a Kennen rant. Personal thoughts on Kennen is that I truly think this champion has lost all skill expression in the video game. Genuinely, I'm a big Kennen hater. I realized this, I don't know, over my last few days of playing into Kennen. I truly think this champion has literally zero skill expression anymore. At least in high level and in games where I play. Like, you know, you would think like, oh, right, like Riot pumped up all this damage into his Q. So like, you know, because it's the only ability with skill shot, right? But it's like, the way Kennen players play these days is they stun you and then they Q you, and it's like, well, you can't even dodge the ability. And then this was the first thing they did, right? Which is like, it's like fake skill expression. Oh, Kennen is a skill shot, but it's actually kind of not in most cases. And then the second thing is when they made him be able to move during R, because there was like skill, right, positioning correctly, getting range of champions, but by making him able to R and move at the same time, now it's like so much easier to get ults off on people on Kennen. Like, it's such a huge quality of life change. And I think with those two changes, like those two things, I truly think Kennen is just a zero skill expression champion. So honestly, I am fucking happy that you know, he's getting nerfed. I'm genuinely happy. Anyway, yeah, 10% AP ratio on Q, it's a fine nerf, you know, it's like hits gold scaling and hits like late game mostly. That's about it, nothing really to say here. Probably still gonna see him in pro, you know, it's not that big of a nerf. LeBlanc, so okay, here we go. Here we have a LeBlanc nerf that I saw some people were saying that it's going to remove the champion from the game. Of course it won't. What? This will barely move LeBlanc at all. Now, the thing is, what LeBlanc players should be more scared of is like her counters being buffed, or like champions that you can play in LeBlanc. This is like scary for LeBlanc. The Sandra Rise Twisted Fate buffs. These nerfs are not a big deal. Like, LeBlanc right now is massively overtuned. So removing 5% AP ratio from Q, now sure, this is like 10% technically because it hits on both Qs, obviously. And W AP ratio on W, it obviously hurts her. But the reality is that her AP ratios are anyway too big right now, because LeBlanc should have a weakness, and her weakness should be that she falls off, right? So right now, when she has such massive AP ratios, the reason why she's performing so well is because she also doesn't fall off as much anymore. So yeah, I mean, I think this is the correct way to nerf her. You have to nerf her damage, and you have to nerf her damage in late game. Obviously, this is another nerf to LeBlanc. If she uses cut down, that's also a nerf, but yeah. I think LeBlanc will still be fine. I honestly think she's still gonna be on the strong side in solo queue. Possibly still overtuned. I'm probably still gonna ban it. I don't see how this is enough. So then we have another Lilia nerf. Passive damage to monsters 70 to 150 to 70 to 100. So the way I see this is that this nerf does not seem to me to be as big as Brand nerf. On top of that, the way I see it is I genuinely think Lilia is a stronger champion than Brand in most cases. So I think Lilia here is totally fine, still overtuned. I don't see what this does anything. Yeah, nerfs her clear a bit, but okay, she clears faster than majority of champions anyway. In hands of good players, they kite out camps perfectly with Lianji and Blackfire Torch. Like, to me, this nerf seems to be much smaller than the Brand nerf. So, I mean, yeah, I guess we should be seeing Lilia at Worlds if people have a brain. Pike 4 armor nerf. This is also nerf to lane Pike, like mid lane Pike, which is nice. Yeah, 4 armor. Less squishy, more squishy in lane, especially in early game. Rumble, I said yesterday, hey, I would probably go for, I mean, I don't know if I said, hey, I would go for passive, but I would say, I think I said something like, you know, maybe they're gonna nerf the passive, because I was kind of thinking in my head, like, you know, it's kind of stupid that Rumble outduels Bruiser champions because he overhits. So yeah, this is the correct way to nerf Rumble. I genuinely think this is a good change. Yeah, Rumble should not just be outstat checking every single Bruiser champion when he enters passive mode. Senna. So is Senna that? Q 40 to 120 to 40 to 200, so it's a nerf to every Senna build. And 60%, so 20% AP ratio. And then the R shield AP ratio goes down by 20%. Okay, so AP Senna might be a lot worse, for sure. AP Senna okay, so the way I see this is AP Senna is for sure gonna be worse than AD Senna, I think. But I think AD Senna is massively overtuned. This champion will still be massively overpowered. Okay, if you just swap your build to Cleaver and Rapid Fire and whatever else they built, this champion is still overtuned as fuck. it doesn't really matter if, like, you know, maybe AP Senna's still gonna be fine, but like, I just know AD Senna is OP anyway. So I don't see, like, I don't care about these nerfs. Like, okay, good, like, whatever. Seraphine, W shield down by 20 and W cooldown, same rank at every level. So yeah, okay, makes W max Seraphine a lot worse. If you are playing AP Seraphine with Q and E, this build is kind of, like, this nerf is kind of unaffected for you till level 14, so that's nice. But, you know, this is completely deserved. I don't even know if this is enough, because honestly, even with this nerf, Seraphine might be one of the best scaling supports. But okay, this is gonna hit her pretty hard, especially with W max. And then Salas, another AP ratio nerf on Salas on W, 10% down. Yeah, this doesn't really change the way Salas will want to play or build much. You're probably still gonna do W max in a lot of in a lot of matchups. Not much to say. Sad a bit. I guess he's gonna lose some damage. It's sad, but it is what it is. And okay, then we have some system nerfs, and these are definitely massive. These are definitely one of the biggest changes ever. So listen very carefully when I say this. Absorb Life is, I'm not even gonna read the numbers, but I truly think this rune is that. I truly think this rune is that. I don't see why you would ever take this rune anymore. I don't. Maybe in low elo, when the game goes 60 minutes, it's a fun rune. In high elo, this makes zero sense to be played. I think most champions will swap to Charm for Presence of Mind. This makes no sense. This rune is that. Cut down, damage threshold will get reverted to the old number. Okay, it's a fine cut down nerf. Rune is still okay, right? If you're like a poke champion or a range champion, you're still gonna be using it. It's fine. It's just not blatantly overtuned compared to the rest of things now. Some champions will prefer Last Stand. Most champions will play Cut Down. It's not that big of a deal. Then we have Fleet nerf. And they're nerfing healing on Fleet. And they're nerfing move speed on Fleet. And I was like, what the fuck? They're murdering Fleet too. Most champions will also be swapping to PTA, right? Or anything else. Like Yasuo and Yon, are they gonna be playing Fleet Absorb Life? I don't think so. Probably not. I think Fleet, like, this is a massive nerf. 5% move speed, 0.25 also removed here. And healing nerf, like, I think Absorb Life looks like a shit rune. Fleet looks like a much worse keystone, possibly even that, like on the verge of being that. I think most champions will swap to PTA, Conqueror, anything they can use. Like this is a good Jhin nerf, to be fair. Like I was complaining that wow, it's not nerfing Jhin, but he gets nerfed by Fleet the most because this is a rune he really relies on, for sure, right? Kayle will swap probably to PTA and stuff, okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say. I wasn't expecting Riot to pull the trigger on Fleet and Absorb Life like that, but that kind of looks like headshots, especially Absorb Life. Celestial Opposition, slow goes to 10% for 0.5 second. What is even that? Is that the... It's a nerf? Celestial Opposition? What is even in that? Celestial Opposition. Wiki. What does this do again? Sorry, let me educate myself. Oh, right. Okay, I see. That's the one with the shield. And after the linger ends, you lose blast to unleash a shockwave around you that slows enemies. Okay, not a big deal. It's whatever. Not a big deal. And then, okay, the lastly, Warmog's Armor. 200 gold more expensive, and the move speed going down by 5%. Honestly, I think Warmog is a dead item. Genuinely. I don't see how else you don't see this. Like, to me, this looks like the item is just that. Especially in supports. Like, maybe you're gonna have Mundo and Cho'Gath still buying this on top lane. Maybe. But on supports, this completely kills Warmog. Like, honestly, I don't see any reason why a Leona or a Nautilus would ever buy Warmog when the item is that expensive, compared to buying just Locket and then having another item and this and that. Yeah, so basically, this doesn't mean it's the end of support role. I already said this multiple times. Warmog is not what makes supports OP. Like, yeah, the item is pretty oppressive and strong, but most supports are just gonna swap to Locket and be fine. The biggest support nerf that happened, in my opinion, was like Mercs and Tabe nerf and Lucidity Boots nerf. I think those changes nerf support much harder than this Warmog nerf. I think supports always had an alternative to just buy Locket and whichever other item. But yeah, honestly, okay, so basically TLDR the patch, like, good job some things, right? Like Varus, I'm not too happy with. Twisted Fate Rise is some of the big buffs, like insane. Like over here we have like, I don't know, we have Brand nerf, Lilia nerf, I don't know, Lilia nerf seems way too small, sure, I don't know, you know, Rumble nerf is really good, Aurora nerf is really good, and then, okay, the biggest, like this I really do respect, like Absorb Life headshotted, Fleet much worse, Rune is probably not going to be played that much by many champions anymore, and Warmock's Armor also, and Cut Down, like these are really good changes. I'm glad they're changing some things for the worlds, but I honestly feel like some of these changes, especially in the system nerf section, should have happened a long time ago. Same goes for like Brand Lilia nerfs. Like it took them really long time to nerf these champions.